Everyone, put your hands together and welcome Officer Pham.
Thank you, Chris. How is everybody doing tonight? Is this the whole group? Is this the usual? You guys doing all right tonight? Yeah. It's good to see such a fantastic group of individuals. Pastor Chris gave me a small tour of the church, and even though I didn't get to see the whole church and all of its services, I'm really impressed with what I've seen so far, with what all of you have done here. I can see kind of the ministry work that's in all of your hands here. It's amazing. This church is bigger than I imagined too. There's no end to it. I want to introduce myself and my family. Um, I actually go by Pham. I know it's kind of a little bit different. I've ran into a lot of Phams and Phams over the years, and it's kind of 50-50. A lot of people. Does anybody else know any other Phams that go by Pham or only Phams? So here in Oklahoma, it's pretty common, especially the way it's spelled. That if you would ask, most people would say Pham. But I do go by Pham, Bo Pham. Sergeant Bo Pham would be my official title. Um, I'm here today with my lovely wife Nicole. She's right here. Okay. My oldest daughter Isabella, right there, and her boyfriend George. And then I've got my youngest daughter, Abrielle, and her boyfriend, Alberto. So I'm not a professional speaker, okay? So forgive me if I stumble across my words, but I do like to um, share my journey, how I got here, how I came to America, my journey, and how I became to know Jesus, and also the what we call the journey to the badge. And a lot of people in the community don't really get a chance, opportunity, or an opportunity to ever talk to a police officer. And I think it's an amazing opportunity today to see so many Vietnamese Christians all in one place. So I thought I was the only one when I was saved. Um, so it's amazing. It's what a blessing to meet all you guys today. Um, I I came from Vietnam to America in 1975. I know that sounds like a long time. 1975. Yes, I am now 52 years old. I don't look like it. Most of the people that I work with also feel the same way. Then they find out my actual age, they're like, "No way." But like all of you guys as well, you have this natural youth to you, so hang on to that. It will be a blessing later as you get older. Um, I came in 1975 during what they call the fall of Saigon. So it was actually during the war, and it was when the U.S. military was there, and you, most of you are familiar with North and South Korea and the conflict there. So Vietnam was the same. There was a North Vietnam and a South Vietnam. The North was the communists, is what as was commonly known, and they basically were invading into the South, and they wanted to take over the whole country, and that's why the U.S. got involved, and the war was there, and it was an ugly, long, drawn out war. Um, the U.S. actually pulled out and said, "Hey, we can't win this." It was a very political war, so everybody just made a mass exodus out of Vietnam in 1975. And it was actually that day, we call it the fall of Saigon, because literally the communists were rolling in and knocking down the gates of the embassy, and they literally just stormed the whole city. And everybody that was there was just trying to flee. We were fortunate enough to be able to leave with the U.S. military on the U.S. military base. I use fortunate loosely because it was still a war time. um, there was the airport was being actively artillery shelled. There was a lot of casualties on the airport, and the people that were there that could get away was able to get out. Years later, you hear a lot about what we people mention boat people. Those people, like my wife and a lot of her family came in the early 80s, and because they actually had to escape the communist control of the country, and they left as boat people. They literally had to sneak out, and those journeys are testimonies in themselves, and what they had to do to get out. It's almost like what you see in some of the history books about like Nazi Jews that had to escape, Germany at the time. Um, but that journey also existed for us that were leaving Vietnam, and a lot of people have perished at the open seas because it's hard to get on a boat. Some of them were small and try to go all the way across, and you know they only made it here because God was watching them, even though they didn't know. I didn't know God then, but He knew me. He knew me. I came here to America, and we stayed at a refugee camp. It's hard to believe that we were able to do that now with terrorism, and with all those stories that you hear about Syrian refugees leaving their country and having nowhere to go because nobody would take them. It's so different because when we went, we were welcomed, and we came in, and they established, they gave us proper documentation, green cards, etc., and a school teacher out of Oklahoma City. We were actually in Fort Chaffee, Arkansas for 3 months at a refugee camp. And a refugee camp is just like what it sounds like. There were a bunch of white tents just rolled up in rows, and that's where we stayed. And a Oklahoma City uh, school teacher, her name is Carolyn Hayes. Um, she was a Christian teacher, and she came and sponsored us as a family, brought us to Oklahoma City, helped my dad get a job, um, and my mom. They both got jobs, and they worked their way up from basically the shirts on their backs. That's what they came with. When you leave Vietnam in that scenario, whether you left during a communist takeover, or you came across in a boat, I mean, you left with just whatever you can carry, and that's all that you had with you. Um, and it's a long journey from coming from that, from where they came from and where we came from to where I'm at now. Um, I grew up in Oklahoma City, kind of around the Northwest 10th and Council area. It's kind of a bad part of town now, but back in the 70s and 80s, the only thing bad was me as a little kid running around terrorizing the neighborhood, but now it's like gangbangers over there, and you don't want to go over there without, uh, proper bodyguards. Um, I eventually moved to Mustang, Oklahoma, and that's where I went to high school. I graduated from Mustang in 1991. I know people's like, I wasn't even born yet. So yeah, yeah. So it's starting to the gravity of how old I am, and and how I got to where I'm at now is this. It's surprising. But I graduated from Mustang. I went to OU to get I have a bachelor's degree in MIS, which is Management Information Systems. It's an IT degree for those that are like computers and stuff like that, but it's wrapped around business administration. Okay, so basically we go out and we'll get with a company that say, hey, let's say your church here is everything's done on paper, no website, no nothing. So as an MIS consultant, you would actually convert that company and make them fully digital website applications, online forms, apps, etc., and get everything converted over to kind of like the new electronic age. So that's kind of MIS in a nutshell, um, on a high level. Did that for many years. I left that career, and my wife and I decided we had an opportunity to. Her family had restaurants her whole life. She grew up in a restaurant, so it was easier for us. It's like we had an opportunity to open a restaurant, and so we lived in Tulsa at the time. We're from Oklahoma City, but then I worked and went to Tulsa, came back. We had a restaurant called Cafe Bella, and we ran it for about 16, 17 years. And we did run other restaurants for her mom too, before that. So it wasn't new to us. Um, it's an interesting journey. The cafe is really neat. It's like a coffee shop with a kind of a European French kind of flair to it. Like it looks very European when you walk in. People are like, "Oh wow!" If you ever been to like La Baguette, it's kind of like a little bit of that, a little bit of Asian bistro. We had boba tea, one of the first. In fact, from one of your mom's cafe, they were doing the boba tea way before boba tea was even a thing here. And it was like first, so we were the pioneers of boba tapioca pearls, for Oklahoma, the entire state. And so we were able to create our own menu with our boba tea menu, because not only was it a full coffee shop, we had competition style espresso. So we didn't use like the super automatic machines like Starbucks where they just push a button and it does everything and it tastes horrible. We actually tamped our coffee by hand, and we used the espresso machine, high pressure draw, and the way we trained it, is we put a lot of passion into it, and the way that we taught um, all of our staff, it was very competitive. Like they could go compete as a barista if they wanted to. Um, when we had the cafe and we started that, I didn't know God. Um, at some point, I met a lot of Christians, and we did a lot of things with some of the Christian churches. And um, for somehow, I convinced myself that I actually did know God, but I was never saved. I didn't understand. Being a man of science, I I didn't grow up with religion in my family. My dad, I guess he would be called an atheist because he doesn't believe. Okay, agnostic is like you're not sure, right? Or you think there's something out there. No, he's just straight up no. He had such a bad experience with religion and coming over from Vietnam to here, and it must have been just a bad luck with the people that he ran into. It was just always some poor bad experience with a Christian or a Catholic person that just wanted money from him or something like that, right? He never ran into an actual true ministry opportunity from anybody. And that's why it's so important for all of us to be able to remember, what's really behind the heart and soul of our ministry work. Um, and again, I did a lot of things for many years with some of the churches, and I thought I knew God, and I even called myself a Christian. But I realized at some point that I wasn't, because there was something missing. There was something missing inside of me. Um, I felt like they call it like a hardened heart, right? Like there's something there. There was just something blocking my ability to to love others and forgive others. Um, and the sin that was in my life. Um, at some point, I went to a men's retreat. It was called Men's Rewired. And Men's Rewired, we meet at Falls Creek down at the Turner Falls area. And they do that retreat every year. It's 3 days, three, average 3 to 5 thousand men. And there's a women's conference just like that on a different week, but this is a men's conference, so only men are there. And I went, the first year I went thinking, yeah, I know God. I'm a Christian. Let's go. And then that'll be fun. I went down there, and I don't even remember who the speaker was, but there was a speaker there, and something happened that day. It was April 2009, in that I realized that that was the point where I let down that hardened heart, and I gave myself to Christ, and that's the day I was saved. And I knew that it, that day, uh, there was you could feel the Holy Spirit just going through. I mean, I couldn't stop shaking. Like I cried, and I couldn't stop crying, and I didn't understand at the time why. Like, why am I crying? Like, why am I on my knees? and why am I just shaking? Like I could not stop, and it was the strangest feeling. I thought something was wrong with me until somebody explained to me like what was going on. Um, and it changed my life. It was almost like you walked through this magic corridor because everything I saw in life after that day, you see it differently. Okay, I mean, you see people differently. You connect with people differently. You can almost know when you find another Christian because there's just something magical about like your mission together in life. Um, and it it has changed my life. Um, it changed my life in a great deal because that that sinful life that I had, um, that the greed, the the hatred towards people. I had enemies that I wish that they were dead, right before I knew God, and after that, it was more of I was able to. That was all lifted. Like I had no more hate towards any of my enemies. If I would to see them again, I would embrace them because that hate is gone. It's been lifted, and it's hard to explain like that. The weight that's off your shoulders, um, to be able to go through that, and and I had a friend of mine when I explained to him, and it kind of gives you the mindset of some. He's a Catholic, and as traditional Catholics, I did go to some Catholic churches, when I was a kid, but it never really made sense to me. I just went because it was family. They went and I went with them, but none of it ever made sense. Like it never made any kind of impact. I didn't know what they were saying, even though they spoke English. It didn't mean anything. But one of my Catholic friends says, "Oh, I understand you're all happy about being saved, and but he's like, it's all gonna wear off. You're just on a high because you're a new Christian." Well, guess what? It's now 2025, and it hasn't worn off. Okay, he was wrong. And every year, and the more that I get to work with people, I've been a camp counselor for many years at Christ Family Church. We're not active in that church anymore, although we still collaborate a lot with the church. Only because our kids have kind of outgrown the youth there, and they had moved to OU, so we had to kind of like switch around and stuff like that. And because of work, I work for a different church, and we have a new church family there. But we grew up with Christ Family Church, where our kids went, and every summer we would spend 5 days at Camp Christian. I think that was the name of the last camp that we went to. Camp Christian. We'd spend 5 days there with the youth group, and I would bring my I would be able to bring like a lot of my airsoft um, guns and be able to teach gun safety. Of course, we're not going to bring real guns, but we bring airsoft guns. We shoot like target practice. We actually bring actual archery bows. Like anybody do archery? Anybody? Anybody ever shot a bow at school? Yeah, some of you, right? Because the school programs have that now. So um, I'll bring some of the youth bows, and then I bring some of my hunting bows, which is like double compound bows, and I'll bring a crossbow, and we'll bring that, and we basically will just go to town and teach everybody how to use all that, and everybody loves it. One of the things too that is interesting with what I also teach at the church camp as a counselor, I teach fly fishing and people and just fishing in general. But most people, has anybody ever casted a fly rod in this room? Anybody? As you can see, it's kind of foreign. So fly fishing is amazing because it's an art to it, and it's a whole different concept of casting. And we usually, what I do is I'll start in the gym or outside on the grass. We don't start on the water. So, and I teach that. And honestly, not only are the older youth kids interested in learning how to fly cast, the whole entire church staff also wants to learn. So I teach the adults and the kids when I'm there. So it's always amazing to share those skills, and it kind of brings a new meaning to being a fisher of men. Um, but but those are some of the things that I did at church camp. And I kind of miss those days because we haven't had the opportunity to do that with my new job, um, and how I transitioned. But I worked at the cafe for many years. I never really gave up my IT job. I did that on the side. I did IT consulting. Um, um, I worked at Dell, which is that big computer place down that you see on 15th and I-44. And most people don't know what they do there, but it's actually an IT company. We have management there. I went back in and started doing like server support. You know those big servers that you see on TV, like the racks, like you see on Mission Impossible, and they're always trying to hack into it. Well, I was the guy that managed and put those together. Um, so I was the database administrator before in my past. So I did all kinds of neat IT stuff. So even at work right now, they call me the IT guy because I can almost fix anything. Almost. Um, I was at Dell and I was a manager there. At the most, I probably had like maybe 40 people that I managed. That was directly, I was a supervisor for. And then eventually I moved to a smaller special group called social media outreach, and we did global social media um, outreach and support, and we supported the whole entire globe through our program. And it was pretty neat to be able to, like, somebody in Japan needing something that needed to be fixed, and we could help them on a form and be able to send messages back and forth. But when I was there, I felt that there was something missing in my life. So this is where I kind of get to talk about how I became a police officer. Okay, um, something was missing. Um, I have like I said, we there's always people that discuss different types of careers, and different degrees and what you want to specialize in. And I think that's one of the reasons why Pastor Chris, wanted certain guests to come, because she wants to introduce you to other opportunities, right? It's not it's not the old school, okay, doctor, nurse, right, pharmacist, right? There's a segment of common careers that your parents probably want you to go into. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I have a brother-in-law that's a cardiologist. Um, so there's nothing wrong. There's something for everybody, but some people never really get to learn about some of the other jobs. Even what I did at Dell was unique, doing IT management, IT support. But as an officer, it's definitely very unique. So that's what I want to try to share with you today about the journey to the badge, because it's your opportunity to be able to ask me a lot of questions. Um, I'm known as the nice guy cop. Um, I mean, people always wondered when I became an officer, like, you're too nice to be an officer. How you can't be? There's no way. Like, they didn't believe it because they were friends of mine, and I was like, hey, guess what? I'm a police officer now, and they're like, what? No way. And they just won't believe it. And it's so much that when I told my dad, and I knew he would be upset. And I'm sure you guys can understand, right? Like, if your parents want you to be something and you had something that gave you a calling to say, you know what, I think I know what I want to do in life, and you're afraid to tell your parents because you know how they're going to feel, right? I see the look on your face, because everybody has that opportunity, or they may have crossed that crossroads where they're like, I think I feel like I know what I need to do, but you're afraid to say. I told my dad, and of course I'm a grown adult, I mean, it's different. I told him when I was 18 I wanted to join the military when I graduated high school, because I felt in my heart that this is before I knew God, but I felt in my heart that there was something that told me I just wanted to serve. I wanted to give back, right? I came here, people went to Vietnam and died to get me here, and they didn't even know me, right? Like, so I felt the pictures that, I felt patriotic enough that I was like, I want to go serve. And my dad was so scorned by the Vietnam War because, guess what? He was in it, right? So he helped. He was on the same side as the U.S. troops trying to fight against the communists. But as some of you already know, the history of the Vietnam War is very tragic. It was it was something that most people come from that environment and they're still traumatized even today, and they don't talk about it. My dad never talked about the war ever when we grew up. Um, that trauma is something that people just can't get over. And he's like, no, you're not going to go to the military, not with a 10-foot pole. You're going to go to college. And when you're Vietnamese, you just say, yeah, right? And you don't talk back, because if you talk back to dad, what's going to happen? He's either it's like my dad liked to grab me by the ear and he'll yank me around like that. And you don't talk back to my dad. He was a very strict, almost like a military general. And I found out later why, but so yeah, he said no. So, I didn't never thought about it. I was only 18. I was like, I'm going to college. Dad said no. He said, I still kind of lived at home even, at that time. I'd go to college and come back, visit, was very loyal and respectful to my parents. Um, and you just did what you were told. And so I did that. I went to college. I got my degree. I worked in the MIS field. I opened my restaurant. We did that. Um, and at that point, when I was fast forward all the way to, you know, through being saved and becoming a Christian, which my dad didn't rejoice with me, right? Because remember, he's an atheist. He was like, I don't want anything to do with the church. Um, I'm still working on my dad, so you guys can pray for me on that one, because he needs a lot of help. Um, but but I did find something amazing the same week, because I didn't know that your church, actually, if you know the history of the church, existed before I accepted Christ, because I thought, what a lonely world, because there was no Asian people in the Christianity community, right? Very, very little. I didn't know this church existed, and I was the only one. I didn't know any other Asian people. Everybody that I knew was Catholic or Buddhist, right? Because even in Vietnam, right, it's either Catholic or Buddhist. And obviously there's probably Christian groups here, but it wasn't common, right? It wasn't mainstream. Um, Amazingly enough, the very same week that I accepted Christ, unbeknownst to me, my sister is my younger sister. She's 4 years. Her name is Nancy. She's 4 years younger than I am. Also accepted Christ on a whole different level. We didn't get to talk about this last time, but um, she also accepted Christ. And when I send a message out to my family about rejoicing in my new love for Christ, she told me, it's like, get out, no way. And she's like, you wouldn't believe it. She met some friends and had a Bible study group, and also gave her heart to Christ in the same week that I did. I mean, what are the odds? Because we never ever talked about religion together as a family. We didn't grow up with it. I never sat down and talked to her about God or anything. It was never spoken in our household. So that's that's just amazing. Like, to come back and reflect back on that. And so then it became just her and I. It's like, hey, we're the only Asian Christians around this area. Like, I think she moved. She eventually moved to Colorado. It's like, are there Asian Christians up there? It's like, no, there's not. I can't find any. So I'm still like, I'm just mind blown. Like you guys, like, I love all you guys. I mean, it's just amazing. And I didn't know that that Pastor Chris told me that this church existed. What year did it open? Your dad? Yeah. So so the ministry has been working already early in this, and that's where it's come. With you guys are the legacy of where it's at now. So um, that's where that's that journey, and it takes me up to where I was at Dale, and at Dell, I was in upper management now and had opportunities. Like at some point, I was like, well, I don't feel like I really want to be here. I didn't really know at the time, what that calling was telling me to do. We were doing Bible study groups and growing as Christians and whatnot. But I never grew up thinking I wanted to be a police officer. It never thought. I thought maybe fireman. Everybody wants to be a fireman when you're a kid, right? Big old fire trucks with bright lights and shoot water all over the place. Um, but I never thought. Everybody's always scared of the police, right? I remember getting my first speeding ticket when I was in high school, and I was just pulled out of the parking lot, and I only made it like 100 feet. I was like, oops. I was just in a hurry. I was going too fast, and the officer pulled me over, and I got my first speeding ticket. He's nice and everything, but people are afraid of cops. Like you get pulled over, and you're like, "Ugh," you can't even get your license out. You're like, "Ugh." Everybody that I pulled over that are new to getting pulled over, their hands are shaking like they're a criminal or something, right? And they're trying to give me their license, but it's their credit card. I'm like, no, 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 we don't take payments. So to put your credit card away, because camera's rolling. It's like I can't take your money, right? I just need your driver's license and your insurance. That's all we need. And they're like, let me get my registration. It's like, no, we don't need that here in Oklahoma City. Some cities do require registration, like meaning who the car is registered to when they do the license plate tag. So, like in the city of Moore, I think they want to see your registration, and they'll give you a ticket if you don't have it, which is kind of shocking. I'm like, God, what a bunch of Nazis over there in Moore. Um, but they're really strict. Moore's super strict, and we can be too. But Oklahoma City is a bigger agency, most of the time. Like, so my duty right now is I'm a patrol officer, and um, my primary duty is to clear the 911 call screen. Okay, which means we have a computer. Every time somebody calls 911, it shows up. Okay, it shows up whatever 23rd and Lynn, guy with a gun. Okay, standing at the corner or whatever. That would be an example of a priority call. Okay, it's a guy waving a gun around at the corner of 23rd and Lynn. Um, or it could be something simple like, somebody stole my car. I woke up this morning, my car's gone. Um, or they go outside and they warm it up in a cold winter day and they just left it running. They go inside. Don't ever do that. Guess what's gonna happen when you go outside? Your car's gonna be gone. Because people drive around, they're looking for people warming up their cars, and it happens every day. We wake up, there's like 20 stolen cars. Like, oh my gosh! And sometimes they're all in my area. um, there's all kinds of funny stories I can tell you about that kind of stuff. Don't leave stuff inside your car, not even a bag, even if it's closed. They'll break your window just because they want to know what's in that bag. They're looking for guns. A lot of people carry guns down in their cars. We're a constitutional carry state now, so a lot of people have guns in their cars, and we lose about 400 guns a year stolen out of cars that goes to the criminals because they're like, yeah, free guns. I know where to go get. You can go break all the windows in every single car down the street here. You guarantee you're gonna get a gun. You might score and get like a big old rifle, or something crazy like that. So yeah, don't leave your guns in the car. I mean, if they do, it needs to be in a really good safe, locked up. Obviously, you guys are probably not gun wielding, youth. It's part of not part of your youth ministry arsenal, but if you know people that are older and they have guns, like don't leave your gun in the car because people will randomly just, even if they don't see a bag, they will randomly just break a window and reach into the glove compartment, reach under the seat. Oh, look what I got! Free gun. But yeah, 400 guns at least minimum go floating around stolen every year just from people leaving their guns in the car. Um, but back to how I chose my calling. I was sitting at Dell. I was sitting in the seat. I felt, I have an opportunity to go upper management. You're getting paid over $80,000 a year. In upper management, right? It's like a fantastic job. It's like, wow, I finally made it. Made it to the upper echelon of management over at Dell. But I wasn't happy about it. So what did I do? I answered my calling. I decided in 2015. And let me share something with you. I'm not athletic, or I wasn't then. Okay, so some of you are wondering too. It's like, can I ever do something like that? Because I'm small, I'm skinny, I'm not athletic. I don't know how to fight. Well, let me explain something, okay? Look at my size. I'm one of the smaller people in the department, okay? There are guys that are smaller than me that are supervisors, okay? So just imagine that. So it's not about, back in the old days, a lot of cops, you call them, in Oklahoma, we call them cornbread. You ever heard that term? It's because they're giant, like they eat just endless corn, and they're like six. My partners, if you take a picture with me and my partners, it's like I'm a little kid, and then my partners, they're 6'2", six. Some of them, they're 6'2" to 6'4". They weigh 220, 250 pounds. They all look like linebackers. Okay, but I've been an officer for a while now. I would say total 7 years, and I've never gotten a fight. Never. Okay. Um, what does that tell you? It, it's about. I'm not saying you won't get in a fight, because sometimes something randomly just happens, right? You guys can just walk out here to your car and get accosted by some crazy dude, and you have to fight him, right? It's a fight for your life. I've never had to fight anybody in the streets. There's been a lot of close calls, but I had a call today where the guy was in handcuffs, and we had four security officers at an apartment complex. It's a city operated security, like government funded housing. And those four officers had him in handcuffs, and he's on the floor. It's like he was angry. He's like, "Get up, get me up, somebody get me up." And he was pissed. And I was like, "What did you guys do to this guy, man? He's angry." Because the call note said, they have him in custody, and he's super agitated. Evidently, he peed on a stairway and made a mess, and so I had to arrest him for trespassing. Um, yeah, I peed on the stairway and inside the building. So we run across a bunch of odd people like that. But I get there, I get him up, I put my handcuffs on him, and I take the other people's handcuffs off, and I walk him to the car. And he totally changed his attitude. He's like answering my questions. At first, he wouldn't even tell those guys his name. I have a fingerprint reader, and I was gonna go fingerprint him to make sure he gave us the right name. But he was cooperative. And it's all about how you talk to people, right? It's about the love and respect that you give to others. Because even criminals, they're just people. Okay. I never disrespect anybody that I've taken to jail. I use that opportunity to minister to them. Okay. And that's kind of that. Some people you can't minister to, but some people, it's about that perfect time for them to listen. I'm like, are you ready to change your life? And they're in the back of the car, and there's a camera in the car. It's all recorded. So nothing I say is, it's kind of like everything you say can be used against you in a court of law, right? Um, I've had people in my back seat that cried, and they cried the whole way to jail, and you talk to them about making a difference in their life, and a lot of times you gotta use the right words, with people that are criminals on the street. You can't just say, hey, Jesus loves you. You can't just start with that. You know what I mean? You got to work with them softly and kind of really be more of a life coach to them. Does that make sense? I mean, gosh, we just pulled out all this meth and cocaine out of their pockets. I mean, I don't think the Jesus love you speech doesn't resonate right out. Well, you got to know who your clientele is. So when I talk to people, I really just more of a life coach to them at first, okay? And we kind of break down the barrier. And they, when you go to jail, they just kind of tell you everything. They just spill the beans. Like, how long you been doing drugs? Oh, about 8 years ago. Yeah, when I got fired from my job, I lost my house, was living in my car. And I started on the cheap stuff. I started using meth, and just never went back. And I just started trying to find something stronger and stronger. And now I'm addicted to it. So I can't even quit. So, at first I kind of coach them about some of the free drug rehab, um, recovery options that we can help them with, and give them those services. Tell them how we can help them change their life around, help them get a job, and it's about helping people recover from their sinful current ways of life, and you kind of smooth in, at some point, when we're at the jail, that if they want me to pray for them, and they always say yes. Okay, so um, I've never had anybody say no. So everybody, except the one guy that was kind of half unconscious, he didn't really say much, but the ambulance had to come take him away, take him to the hospital. But some people take so many drugs that it's very scary for us as officers because people die in our back seats because they're so high on drugs that they just literally their heart stops. They abuse their body, okay, so much on drugs that it's called excited delirium is their technical term they use. And we've had people that it's called an in custody death where they're in the back seat and they're just high as a kite and their heart is pounding so hard that it just stops. Like it just literally, you could say it almost like leaps out of their chest, but not really. But yeah, people will die in police custody, and it's the scariest thing because it's like, oh my god, take off the handcuffs and start doing CPR, and start, trying to. It is scary. We've had opportunities to do CPRs on infants from 1 year olds to 3 year olds that we pull out of swimming pools. It's things. I know it sounds tragic, like oh my gosh, I don't want to experience that, but it's just part of life. You're there to help people, and a lot of times you're there to save people. I had a guy that made the news. One of my partners, there was a guy sleeping on the bridge. He was literally laying on the little ledge because on the other side you fall to your death. So you can see him on this body camera, and because it made the news, he's like walking over there, and he's like, "Hey, you okay?" And as soon as that guy started waking up, he rolls over like he's rolling out of bed, and he fell off the edge of the bridge, and my friend caught him by his first. I think he grabbed him by his shirt first, and then was able to get him up, and literally stretch. I mean, he almost like broke his arm trying to do it, but he grabbed him and yanked him back over. But he did get Officer of the Year for that life saving event. So you have the opportunity to save people. Sometimes it's not always on a daily basis, sometimes you save people because you made that one effort because you cared about trying to make their life better, okay? And it could be that one little talk that you had. It may not make a difference just yet, but it will somehow in their life. Sometimes you have to take people to jail 10 times over a few years before they really kind of wake up and come to their senses. That come to Jesus moment, right? I had a lady one time that walked up to me. She was passing out hand sanitizers that were homemade, that they bottled, and she goes, "I just want you to know." Of course, it wasn't me directly that took her to jail, but she was talking to us as police officers. She goes, "Just thank you very much because you guys saved my life." I'm like, "How is that, ma'am?" Like, here's this lady just passing out like free hand sanitizer. She goes, "What happened? Like, how did we save your life?" She goes, "Well, you guys took me to jail." And I was like, they kind of looked around. It's like, what? I never. This was the first time someone ever said that to me. I'm like, what? What do you mean we took you to jail? It's like, well, I got into a situation. I was on drugs, and you guys took me to jail 5 years ago. And she said that, you know, in jail she came to know Jesus, and she said that it changed her life, and now she's doing ministry work, passing out things and giving things to people in the street. So you do see the miracles in work like that all the time. And not every day is a good day, you know, um, but people, yeah, you're always going to be able to get bad days and good days, but I would say most days are good days. I love my job. I love my job. In fact, I'm actually torn because I just turned in my application to detective, and if I make it, I won't be wearing this uniform anymore unless I'm like doing like an off-duty job or special speaking or something like that. If I do an off-duty job, I'll put this back on and work the off-duty job. But I won't be on patrol anymore answering 911 calls. I get to hand off my AR-15 to somebody else. Yeah, the new guy's like, here you go. You better treat it good. Like clean it like like in the military. But there's a lot of roles in law enforcement. So like I said, I'm applying to be a detective. It doesn't mean that I won't eventually come back out and do like I might be a patrol supervisor maybe in the future. or I might go do undercover stuff where they have to do like vice stings, undercover work. There's a lot of undercover officers that will try to buy stolen goods or drugs. Um, we got canine operators, so they're full-time canine operators, so they have a canine dog with them. And those dogs are vicious. I mean, they have a remote on their thing too. If like they're away from the car, they can just push it. The doors fly open. That dog comes out. You don't want to be anywhere near that dog when it comes out, because it will come straight to the handler and will attack whoever is attacking him. So um, it's amazing the opportunities that you can do. Like they have a bomb squad unit. You can go and like do the bomb suit. You could be a bomb tech. You could be like a TAC team, which is like a SWAT team guy. Um, it's almost endless. Like you could be an Air One pilot. You could be a helicopter pilot. And it's a small group, so it's hard to get in, but it's possible. Some people work 3 years and they're boom straight to Air One. It's crazy. Like what? Like they'll the department will pay. They'll spend about $100,000 on you just to get your commercial rotary license to fly that helicopter. And it's crazy. Like the opportunities that you can have. So those are like in a nutshell, like all the different things you can do. Because people ask, like, gosh, like, what's it like? You could be, I could stay in patrol. Like I said, I don't even really want to leave. I love it. It's so fun. I never really thought that it would be this fun. Like I had a ride along today, like 18-year-old guy that that we know. So he got to ride the whole entire shift. We worked 10-hour shifts, so he stayed with me the whole time, and he said it was so much fun. Um, and he got to see a little bit. We didn't get any really crazy calls today, so there was no shootings or anything, nothing tragic. It was just all normal, everyday, routine stuff. Um, um, but a lot of people will do that. They'll do a ride along. Where's Sophie? We're still waiting for you. Well, okay, because you're next. So I met Sophie, and I did a speech about a week and a half ago. I think you were there. Some, it was embarrassing, yes. So I'm gonna wrap myself out. I'm a drone pilot for the department. I'm a drone instructor. So like if you ever become an officer and you want to fly a drone, you want to be a drone operator, I'll be one of the instructors teaching you. So we will teach you how to get your FAA certified. It's a commercial license. So you have to be a commercial licensed drone operator to be able to operate our drone. And if you want to use that same commercial license to fly for the church for any other side gig, if you want to do photography, videography, or whatever, right? YouTube channel, YouTubers, YouTube influencers, right? You have to be, if you're getting any kind of monetary gain by using your drone footage, which if you're a YouTuber, you're going to get monetary gain just from people watching your videos. You have to have a commercial license. So the same commercial license that we get you, that our department's going to pay for, you can use it on the side for your side gig. Okay, so that's one of the perks about it. I'm an instructor for other things in the department. I teach software, the new reporting tools, our paper tickets. Like when you get a speeding ticket, it's now going away. It's going to be electronic. So we use an iPhone. We can scan your ID. We can scan your car, and all that information comes into our PDA, and it prints straight in our car. So the times have changed, and you will sign your ticket with your finger on the screen of the phone. Um, Sorry, I'm jumping around a lot because it's so exciting. There's so many things. It's hard to talk about law enforcement because there's so much there. Um, Going back to uh, for those that were, for those of you that were afraid of, wait a minute, what about my size? Like, how do you get around that? Like, I'm small. Well, in the police department, they teach you how to fight. Doesn't matter how big the other guy is because they teach you how to fight. Now, we're not talking about stand-up boxing, okay? I'm not going to try to box a guy that's 6'4". It's probably not going to work out too well because the body weight. They just got too much mass. But but normally you don't try to fight somebody that's big. Okay, well you guys are smarter than that, right? I told you I've been on for about 7 years and I never had to fight anybody. Why? You use your brain. You're not going to go up. It's like I'm going to kick your butt. Okay, I mean then yeah, there's going to be a fight. It, it, but if you did have to fight somebody, okay, because most people know police officers are well trained, so they teach you Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They teach you. what we call CDT, which is combat defense tactics. So if somebody tries to attack you, they're going to teach you how to handle that. So if you end up on the ground, it's actually an advantage for you guys because if I have to fight somebody that's a little taller, if we're on the ground, well, that guy's done. I'm gonna wrap around him like a python, and I could choke him out. I mean, it's that easy. You're actually will be certified to do like sleeper holds as they call it in wrestling, right? So they teach you how to handle yourself, and then we have a bunch of tools with us, right? I mean, the last thing that I want to do is draw this gun and shoot somebody. Okay, it's not about shooting people. A lot of people think, oh, cops are they just kill people. Well, nobody wants to shoot anybody. It's we shoot somebody if we have to shoot somebody. Meaning, if somebody had a gun, pointed to your mom or dad, it's your job to defend your family, right? You have to do what you have to do. Okay, I mean, it's just how it is. But nobody really wants to go out. It's like they wake up. It's like I'm going to shoot somebody today. So the laws are very specific. They're very restrictive for us. So they give you all these tools. I got this is a pepper spray. It burns. It's like you went straight to hell. If you want to know what it was, spray this in your face. Yeah, anybody? It's the worst thing that I've done in my life. I would never want to do because in the academy you have to get pepper sprayed. Unfortunately, you can't avoid it. You're going to get pepper sprayed. It's just part of the journey. Okay, journey to the badge. But after about 20 minutes, it wears off after you're done screaming like a little baby. Um, but it does burn. Um, you could use pepper spray. You can use, right? We got taser, right? See that? That, if you count that, that's a 5-second ride. So if I deploy this, it has, see that? You can't miss. You see that? There's no escape from this thing, okay? It shoots 21 feet. This is the old model. Shoots 21 feet. The new one will get you at 30 something feet. And it has 10 probes. I got 10 shots on the new one. This one has 2. But yeah, so whoever's sitting in the back, I could hit you from this. And if it makes good contact, obviously, if somebody's wearing something thick, it's not going to work because it's like a fish hook. It shoots out. It's like a fish hook. It sticks in your skin. It doesn't come out very easy. But if you got thick clothes on, you can't really use it. So there are limitations. It's not a magic do-all weapon. You can, if you're actually struggling with somebody, you could just push that button like I did there, and that's called like a drive stun. Like you just drive it into them, and it's just a pain compliance, and it hurts so bad. Usually they will just stop what they were doing. But it's different. If I shoot the probes out, it comes out and it has 2 little wires to it. And if I get both probes onto you, yeah. Well, this guy looks pretty muscular, so I want to point it out. So the more muscle you have, the more lockup you get. So the skinnier you are, it is not quite as effective. It still works, but the more muscle you have, the harder you drop because what it does, it's called NMI, which is a neuromuscular incapacitation. And if both probes hit, your muscles go. So it doesn't matter about your pain tolerance because it doesn't hurt. Like when we had to shoot ourselves in the academy with the taser probes, it doesn't hurt. It feels like anybody ever touched like a light bulb socket and you get like right. It's what it feels like. Like it doesn't hurt. It just kind of jiggles you around. It kind of stings a little bit, but it doesn't hurt. What hurts is afterwards because oh my gosh, it causes your muscle to lock up, and that's why you see in the videos when people get tased, they just go and they hit the ground. They have no control over the body. Their muscles, the more muscles you have, it just locks, and you have no control over it. You can't move your arms, legs, and you just hit. You fall. Most people that fall, they just knock themselves out from the head hitting the ground. Um, but yeah, if it doesn't work, it's because you hit like a belt or something like that, right? So that's why we're upgrading to the one that has 10 shots. I've only had to tase one person, crazy guy on drugs that had a knife, um, and yeah, he didn't win. Yeah, he knocked himself out. Um, so you have that. So you got pepper spray, you got a taser, you got if you really wanted to break somebody's bones, this is the baton. It's that's how fast and easy it comes out. You do that, and most people just take off running. This is solid steel. Like it's very it's solid metal. If I hit you in the arm, it will fracture your arm. Okay, so that's what it's designed to do. And even this has rules. Like we can only hit first on the arms, legs. Those are like the green zones. We can't hit somebody unless we can't hit them in the face, head, neck, heart area, groin, unless they have a weapon where if you needed to, if you had to the ability to shoot them, you could, then you can hit them in those zones because those are what we would call fatal blows. Like if I hit somebody in the neck, that would be the same as me shooting them. So they have rules. So there's rules of engagement, just like in the military, right? In the military, you only have X amount of time. I mean, X amount of things. You can't just start shooting the enemy. They have to wait to be engaged first. So same thing. I just can't suddenly take this out and break somebody's arm because they don't want to get handcuffed. No, I'm gonna try to get them in handcuffs, and I will try to do what I can and do it. But you can use a pepper spray. You can use a taser. If you need to, if they get a little squirrely, they can get whacked with a stick. Like I said, the last thing they train you how to shoot. Okay, I mean these guns are so advanced now. I mean, I don't know if you know yardage, but they 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 teach you how to become very accurate. When I first started shooting in the police academy, I couldn't barely hit the target like from 50 yards. I was like, none of my bullets hit the paper. Like, what's wrong? Like, I think this gun's broken. No, you just don't know how to shoot. Is what the instructor. But they teach you. They teach you from square one. Like they literally will hold the gun with you and pull the trigger on an empty gun, and they will take you through baby steps. A lot of people in the police academy has never shot a gun before, believe it or not. So you don't have to be like a gun freak or some James Bond guy to be, an officer. The majority of the officers that come through now never shot a gun, but they become experts. Okay, um, I remember in my first academy class, they make you do a bunch of drills, and the very last shot, I had to shoot a target about size of a man, a steel target. It's a metal target, and I had to shoot it at 100 yards, which is a length of a football field. So there is a rail, so you could rest your arm on it, but I hit it in one shot. I never could have done that from the get go. They train you. They train you how to excel. They train you how to drive fast and shoot guns. So you become a professional driver. Okay. I mean, the courses, it was the funnest thing. The driving course, I mean, we're going 80 miles an hour through these driving courses, going sideways, and we're like, how is this car not flipping over? And they tell you, like, no, these cars won't flip over unless, obviously if you spin out and you hit a curb or you hit something, but if you're on the track, when we practice, it's all just an open track. Like there's no curbs or anything, just cones. You just gotta drive around the cones, and we'll go 60 miles an hour, and we'll just whip it, and it'll just spin around, and all you see, you stop and you open your eyes when you're done, right? Because you're scared, right? So you'll close your eyes and just praying, right, that you're gonna survive. And you open your eyes, and the smoke clears, and you're like, yeah, that car didn't flip over. You're right, it won't flip over. It's like um, it's so fun. Like the driving was a blast. The shooting, you know, that's fun too. But it's more. You're sweating a lot because you're holding a live firearm, so it's more strict. So, but at the end of it, you're like, wow, I can't believe I did that. Like they taught me how to do that. So that's the journey. I mean, if you want to do it, you feel the calling to serve. There's ministry opportunities in law enforcement. That's my passion behind it, and that's why like I get so many compliments. People call my supervisor. It's like that's the nicest officer I've met in my life, and he was so helpful. I mean, why? I mean, we're there. It's the person's their house was robbed. This could be the worst day of their life. Something happened to them. I have to. I'm a bilingual translator. I forgot to mention that. That was the best part. So I'm a bilingual translator. So all of you guys probably speak Vietnamese, which means you guys also will be a bilingual translator. It's a special unit that you have to apply to. Once you get out of the academy, you can get in there and you get paid extra if you speak Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin, uh, French, sign language. Somebody's here probably knows sign. ASL, anybody? No? Um, what's another one? Oh, Arabic was the other one. So those are like the main languages that they have right now. And if you speak it, even on an intermediate level, you'll get paid for that. If you speak it on advanced level, like I'm like bottom of the advanced bucket. So, you know, I'm a, it's 1 through 10 is how they rank it. And I'm at 8. So 8, 9, and 10 is advanced. The benefit to that for me is I get to translate for detectives. So when somebody gets like robbed by gunpoint, which believe it or not, over in the Asian district, we've had a lot of robberies. People going to Gowing to go shopping, they come out, I got my groceries, and then boom, somebody grabs their purse, knocks them over, punches them in the face. We had a family that was just getting in their car. Dad was warming it up. Mom gets in the back, and suddenly a car just pulls up behind them. This is outside. Two guys jump out, jumps in the back seat. Mom's get punched in the face, and she's like fighting him. She don't even know what's going on because she got hit in the face so hard she can't even see. So her eyes are all watering. She couldn't even describe what he looked like. And so he grabbed her purse. It was actually her lunch pail. That's the funny part. Her lunch pail had a wallet in it. So the guy grabbed it, and then the other guy tried to steal the car. So he gets dad out. So they're fighting. Dad's got a bloody nose, dripping blood all the way down to his shoes. And then the daughter, which is about Bella's age, comes out. What the hell? What's going on? And the daughter's boyfriend comes out. So they start videotaping, and so the guys get scared. They didn't know what to do. They just started filming. It's like, what is going on? Like, my mom, dad's getting beat up, and so the two guys, I won't say they're a race or anything because I don't want to make it a race thing. The two guys just freak out. They jump in their car and they take off. They took mom's lunch pail, and they ran so fast the wallet flies out, lands on the ground. So he only made it out with her gumtiang, you know. Um, I don't even know what he thought when he opened it up and find fried rice in it, you know. But and like weird fish sauce, you know. It's like, so I'm not sure what they did with it, but he didn't. They didn't get anything. But you know, unfortunately, it's still a robbery. It's robbery by force or fear. If they had a gun or a knife, it would be called armed robbery. Same charges. It's just a different name. But we found those guys. We have advanced camera systems in our system, and it we were able to track them down. They got them both arrested. They came to headquarters. As an advanced translator, I got to go and interview all four of those people. The first two, the mom and dad, they didn't even speak English. It was 100% up to me to be able to get their statement and figure out what happened. Okay, and get the descriptions and everything. The other two that were younger, they'd speak English, so I just kind of helped them some. But that's how important it is to be able to speak Vietnamese and help victims in our community, okay? Because that's one of the reasons why I did it, because I know there's a lack of Vietnamese translators in the police department. There's only two on patrol right now, me and one other guy named Christopher Tran. Two people. That's unacceptable. This morning we had a new applicant. She was a new Vietnamese speaker. She's gonna be an advanced speaker, so hopefully if she gets in, there'll be a third one. But we need all the help we can get, and there's obviously going to be a benefit to be able to do that. Um, the resources are there. You know, I can help coach you guys to be stronger, to get to where you need to be. If anybody is actually interested, I can coach you through it. And you have a long time to get ready, obviously, because you can't apply until you're 21. But you could be up to 45. So I came in late. I started when I was 44. And so even at that late in the game, you can still do it. So if you know somebody that they want to do it, now's the time. And I can kind of give them all the inside tricks to pass in the academy and how you can get ready, prepare your body and your mind to be able to get through it. But it's a very rewarding job. And one last thing, it's amazing what they pay. So it's on the public website. We can get you that information later, but it's the starting pay right now is 66,000 a year. Like I work a lot of overtime. I more than double that what I make annually. So like it's not a low paying job. Like so you can make 140 plus a year being a cop, which is unheard of. Back in the old days, it was like a $20,000 a year salary. It's not anymore. So it's a very respectable job. Does anybody have any questions? I know we're running out of time. Do we? Are we have a quick a strict cutoff? Okay. Anybody specific questions? Yes. Well, the honest truth is, I love donuts, but I don't eat any because I'm a type 2 diabetic. So I'm very strict on my diet. People bring donuts all the time, and I just look at it. And then I go to breakfast and I eat my sausage and sausage, eggs. I have to keep my diet's low carb. So every once in a while I'll cheat, but if I eat a donut, I have to skip breakfast and lunch because it's just too much sugar. So your body is your temple, right? You got to treat it right, right? You gotta treat it right. What other questions you have? Yes. You know, I actually don't know because it's not common anymore to see cocaine on the street. And when we had our academy class, they would bring in certain drugs so you can look at it through the bag, but you can't smell it because it's sealed. But they do light. Here's the thing: I grew up, and they didn't believe me. I told them I don't know what marijuana smells like. Never smoked it. Never touched it my entire life, and they didn't believe it because you know how Americans are these days. Like, everybody smokes marijuana, and I'm like, I've never been around it. I don't know what it smells like. And they brought it. Our drug narcotics team came to the academy. They lit it and walked around the room so that the smoke would fill the room. And it was the stinkiest thing I smelled in my life. It was horrible. I mean, it. I was like, people smoke this? It's like you took a piece of dog poop or something and wrapped it in leaves or something. It smelled horrible. I'm sure maybe there's better versions or something, but most people say it does kind of stink. Um, so the actual product itself, yeah, maybe not too pleasant. Any other questions? Yes. My funniest story? Oh wow, there's a lot. We'd be here all night, but I would say my funniest one was I met a guy that had a mental health issue. He was older. He used to be a college professor. Genius, smart. He still had all his books, but he lost his mind, and he was so psychotic that he was harming other people. He'd be running around his neighborhood with a hammer, and he went. We had to meet him on several occasions, but one time I met him in the front yard, and he was so psychotic. He was just it was like a comedy show. He was just out of his mind. I don't even know what he was saying. He was just like talking about this. He's like, I'm Dr. Fart Smither. Like, fart, fart sniffer. That's what he called himself. He's like, and then he bit down on the ground and like made this big old toot, and he was like, "Smell it, I'm Doctor Fart Sniffer." And we just like, there was like six of us there, and we're just like, "Oh my gosh, what are we gonna do with this guy?" And yeah, that day we didn't win that day. He ran back in his house and barricaded himself, and we left him there because that was the safest place for him. But a couple of days later, he ran across the street to his neighbor's house and into somebody's house. He went through the front door and barricaded himself in the bathroom and locked himself in there, and then started tearing the whole entire bathroom. Like the water was coming out under the door because he had broke the toilet, and he tore the shelves off, and everybody ran out of the house. They were just scared to death because he said he was going to kill everybody. So we were in there like trying to push the door. So we got like five cops all in the hallway. Remember, big guy, big guy, big guy, me, right? So, so we're like, hey, let me do it, let me do it. So we're just pushing the door, and we finally get the door open because it's all the furniture had fallen off the wall, and it was barricaded. And we finally got the door open enough, and he's in there like he's on his back on the floor against the bathtub with his foot, just, you're not getting me, I'm gonna kill all you guys. And he made a lot of threats. He was just obviously psychotic. And my supervisor, the tallest guy, was able to. It's like he got his taser right into the crack of the door. It's like, you better come out. And he's like, okay, don't do that. Okay, and yeah, don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. So he came out, and we took him to a mental health crisis center where he was able to get help. But he fought us the whole way. Like, when we got him there, the doctors had to pin him against, I call them doctors, they're orderlies. Okay, like they look like a bunch of football players, wearing all white, like an insane asylum. So they had him pin him against the wall, and they had to inject him in the butt with with a sedative, and because he wanted to fight everybody, and he finally got enough sedative that he finally sat down. It's like, okay, now we can have a conversation. So yeah, they took him to mental health behavioral, one of those extreme cases, but to get him help. But that's one of the funny stories. But there's all kinds of funny stories. Yes. Right now it's meth. It's the cheapest drug on the street, so it's unfortunately it's almost it's like a poison. Like, people can throw a bunch of stuff, chemicals from their kitchen sink, like like all the meth is like these homemade chemicals, and all it is, it's just like poison in the form of a rock or crystal. and people are smoking it, and it's very toxic. People that smoke meth, their teeth rots out. And if you ever Google meth teeth online, you'll see like people in their booking photos, like they used to look normal, and then they progressively they turn into a zombie, and it's because they smoke meth. Their teeth, the chemical, literally just rotted their teeth. Do you see it? Am I lying? I'm not lying, am I? It's like, right. So so, yeah, meth. It's a cheap drug. That's we're the meth capital of the world, Oklahoma. Unfortunately, because you can spend $20 a day on meth. When you give people money at the corners, you're not helping them at all. You're giving them their drug money. Okay. The people that really need help, they're all at the shelter. Okay. My wife does a lot of ministry work at the shelter where she feeds people. The church makes food. The people that really need help, they're all at the shelter. The people in the streets, you're giving them drug and alcohol money to support their habit. Those people don't need help. I'm generally speaking. I can't speak for everybody, but if you really want to help people, go to the shelter. That's where that's where people gravitate to get services. The other people that are on the streets, living in the streets, and they're walking around homeless, is because they want to be. They don't want help. They just want to abuse the system. Okay, and honestly, half of the people that are standing corners, they're not even homeless. They're just milking it for money. We've seen people go from that to their car and just drive off. And it's worse. Yeah, it's pretty bad. So choose your ministry wisely. That's all I'm saying. So, any other questions? No? Yes. Scariest? We had a standoff one time with a guy with a gun that had an AR that pointed it. Um, it was a check welfare call. Somebody came to the house and he was passed out, so they called, and we got there and he's unconscious on his bed, and so um, the fire department got there first, the medics, and they were like trying to wake him up, and they look around and there's guns, there's guns everywhere, like there's AR-15s, and they just like we're getting out of here. So they grabbed the gun and they set it. They set it down. No, they didn't grab the gun on that one. It was actually still there. When we got there, um, we were there just to make sure that everything was okay with him, and we knock on the window, try to wake him up, and he actually woke up and he was very agitated that we were there. He did not like the police. Um, so we never even made it on into his house that day. I get confused because we had to go there multiple times, but that day he grabbed his gun and met us at the door with his loaded gun. Four of my partners got stuck behind a tree, and he had the AR pointed at them. I was a little bit farther behind another skinny tree, so I'm like, was trying to draw us attention because my friends were closer and they were all trapped. And I was like, "Hey, I'm over here. Shoot me," because I knew he can't shoot me from that distance. I was like way over here because my friend, it was Lax. She was up behind a tree. She's like, "Pham, take cover, take cover." I'm like, I know what I'm doing." So, but anyway, that it was the craziest standoff, and thankfully no shots were fired that day. But they all had their guns pointed, and they were just trapped behind this tree, and they're like, "Put the gun down," and he was pointing he had the rifle stuck. He was hiding behind his door, so you could only see part of his face. So you couldn't shoot anything, because you can't really see. Because they said they would have shot him because they pointed the gun directly at them. So that's a felony in itself. But they didn't have a good shot. Um, but they were like, "Don't do it, don't do it," and I was just bracing for it. I felt like I can see the gun blast just getting ready to go because I'm like, they're gonna shoot him or he's gonna shoot them or try to, and it was pretty scary. But no, he ended up putting his gun down, and we were able to take it from him, and they did charge him afterwards. So that day was a big mess. So we had to use my drone, get out there. Tech team showed up. Yeah, he didn't have a chance. So he eventually gave up. He came out and gave up, and he was charged and convicted for ADW. So assault with a deadly weapon. So yeah, a lot of fun stuff. Any final questions for from an officer or from just people? Mm, I had a guy that got in an altercation at his front door with another roommate. The roommate shot him with a gun. It went straight through. chest out the other side. We got there. We dragged him out of the street behind one of the cop cars. I was able to put what's called a chest seal. It's like a big old piece of tape. So I put chest seal on over the wound, and so that the lungs can operate. Because with an open wound, it's you can't breathe through your lungs collapse. So put the chest seal on there. For me, that was probably the worst one I saw, and that they lived. The other ones that are worse, obviously they did not live. So people that most of the shootings that we see are people that just got in fights with themselves, like gangbangers or neighbor disputes. There are a few where people try to shoot officers, but it's very few compared to people actually shooting at each other. Most of the shootings that we see, there's a lot of shootings, and you don't know about it. There's probably one every night. But the news don't come out, and it's like, just another shooting, you know. Um, so yeah, we sometimes people show up at the hospital with gunshot wounds and stuff, and it's a mess out there. So, but yeah, mostly it's just people shooting each other, just society, angry people that don't know Jesus. They're shooting each other, and that's what it is. That's what the problem with the world today is that there's not enough people out there that knows God, and that's where society needs us to be able to get out there and share the gospel, okay, and do your ministry work in whatever way you can. Everybody has their own specialty and how they want to share their ministry work. I do it my way. Some people are a little bit more direct about it. So they're just straight up full on ministry out there. They might be reading the Bible at the corner, but we all have different ways that we can share the ministry with people, and that's how I do it, and that's how I shared with you today, how I help people. So every day is helping people. Okay. Thank you for having. Oh, yes, Sophie. The faith has always been a journey, and I'm still learning and trying to improve with my Bible reading. And like I said, I'm not a pastor, so it's hard for me. I would like to sit here and pretend like I know, like some of my favorite scriptures, like Romans 12:1 and Romans 12:2, right? But it's hard for me to explain. Like Pastor Chris can probably explain that better than I can. And those two verses, if you're familiar with that, is what powers me a lot in my journey, and whatnot. But there's always a learning process. So, yeah, you're right. You don't ever get to a point where you're perfect at with your journey, to learn. So just continue learning, continue, being better, and learning how to read and embrace the scripture. Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for having me here. I appreciate the invite. Hopefully, I didn't go over too much.
That's okay. All righty. So you heard it from Officer Pham. You like to drive fast and shoot guns. This is for you. I'm just kidding. But I really appreciate how he shared. There's so many things actually that you can do, from flying drones to SWAT team to the bomb squad. So I hope this has been encouraging for you. Full transparency, I'm going to share with you what I've been praying for. I've been praying first that God brings all of you back, all of the ones that are out there, and thank God that they are coming back, and that you guys would choose to stay here to build up this church, because like what he said is true. There's not a lot of Vietnamese or Asian Christians that are not, Catholic. So that's the first thing, is that think about growing up here, staying here, building up this church. And the second thing that I pray for is that there is every profession that is needed in the community, whether it be plumber, electrician, carpenter, roofer, police officer, doctors, whatever is needed in the community, that we would have at least one from our church, because that is the ministry. That is how we reach out to people. That's how we help people, is through what we do. And so it's not just a career. It's not just what you do to get paid. It is your ministry, and you heard it very clear how both is done. And so One more time, give it up for Officer Pham. I'm going to pray us out. Okay, let's stand up and I'm going to pray. Dear God, our Heavenly Father, God, we thank you and we love you so much, Father, for these young lives. And we thank you for people like Officer Bo Pham and his family, Father, God. God, I ask that you instill into these young individuals, God, that calling for their life and open the doors for them in their life. God, those that are graduating, that are in college, those are looking for jobs, God. Instill in their heart that calling, that love for your church here, God, the love for the Asian community, the Vietnamese people here, God, and then open the doors for them to become people in the community that are helpful, that people can come to, that people can look towards for help when they need us, God, and that we would be the bridge to bring Jesus Christ to them through what we do and what we say, Father. Father God, thank you for this time. Thank you for this unity. Thank you for the food and the people who prepared it for us, God. We thank you in the name of Jesus. We pray. Amen. All right. Guys, if you guys want to come down and take the food up from the kitchen, we can have dinner. And Ben and Jonathan, if you're here, I want you to connect with Officer Pham